Hi and welcome to the Change Leaders Playbook, giving you all things delivery and leadership in a podcast. Today, I'm joined by Kelly Rayduta, who is a seasoned marketing professional with a bunch of experience in the industry, in particular with SEO. Kelly's passionate about using her marketing to create a positive impact, and she also runs her own agency. Today, we're going to be covering a bunch of things, including what it means to build an authentic business relationship and much, much more. So stay tuned and welcome, Kelly. Hi.
Hi, Claire. Thanks for having me.
Great. Good to see you again. Would you like to maybe start by just giving us a bit of background about you, how you started your agency, how you got into marketing and SEO?
Of course. Yeah. So how did I get into building an agency? So strangely, when I was at university, I always said I'd start my own business. I didn't really know what that looked like, but I remember having my first design technology lesson and I was like, it's going to be something around this. So what happened was I did uni and then I was like, actually, if I'm going to build a business, I probably need something to fall back on just in case. So I actually trained to be a teacher, and I loved teaching, loved working with, students and helping them to develop and grow. And I still have a lot of that now. So I sort of kept those skills going. So then I was always going to do 2 years in teaching, but I'd started my master's. So I thought, actually, I need to get this master's finished. It was 3 years part-time while I was working as a teacher. So then on my birthday, I was like, right, hand in my notice in, going to be finishing at the end of this, semester. And off I went. And back in the day, actually, it was more branding. But that sort of evolved into, looking at websites, got really into coding. And then it fell to a really sweet spot for us, which is how we've got into like SEO and Google Ads, which is like, what is it that moves the needle? So you've got this amazing all singing, all dancing website, or you've got this amazing brochure, but how are you getting it in front of the people that you want to work with, your dream clients? So that's how the journey unfolded, really. And that was 10 years ago now. And I don't really know where the time's gone.
Well, so I suppose then your teaching background enabled you to think about how you could help people and educate people in branding and SEO as well.
Yeah, and that's the part that I love about it, because I think especially in SEO, getting your keywords found on Google and with Google Ads, I think there's a lot of myths out there of, that we're waving a magic wand in the background and making these things happen, but actually it's really data driven. And actually, when you really get into it, I'm a bit of a geek. You can see the work that you're putting in and the impact it has. Obviously, there's always going to be a curveball where Google does an algorithm. But ultimately, the core message is that Google just wants the best pages at the top of Google that answer the queries very specifically. And I think as long as you do that and do that well, which I'm sure we'll get into during this call, then that's ultimately what matters. But through our journey, we teach people. Along the way, we're really transparent about what we're doing, why we're working on that. And that's really important. And yeah, I think my teaching background helps with that as well.
Yeah, I reckon it does. So what would you say is the ultimate aim for your business, or accentuate?
We've got ambitious goals. Naturally we want to grow as a team. I think something that's really important to us at the moment is we've identified like dream clients and potentially a niche of sustainable businesses, something that we're really passionate about. We're working through our B Corp certification at the moment. Because, I do believe that, as we grow a business, there's lots of opportunities where we can support the people we work with. We can support the team to grow. And that's really, really important. So I think as long as we stay in line with, treating our staff well, we want to be an organisation that people love to work for, giving them the space to grow as individuals as well. And we do that for our clients. For us, if they win, we win. And that's what we care about, them winning. And through them winning, they do better for everybody else as well, their team and the products they deliver. So I think, the aim is just to continue as we are, really, continue to learn, continue to grow, and continue to help each other and educate each other.
That's really good. So the way I see it then, your product, thinking about people who build things and enable other organizations and businesses to be successful and either to be profitable or to be, to serve their users' needs. Part of your product is actually not just the skills that you have to enable people to do SEO and increase their reach, but also your people and your ability to communicate efficiently and build relationships. That's what I see, certainly from the conversations I've had with you and the interactions we've had. I see that as a product in its own right? I don't know whether you'd agree with that and how you think that separates you from others.
I do agree with that, actually, because I'm really passionate about the things that help people to grow, and how we build our systems and processes internally is all about that as well. Like, how can we help the team? How can we help them help themselves? How can we do all of those things? So yeah, I guess I'm not really quite pinpointed it in that way, but that's a really nice way to look at it. And also with our clients, I think that, yeah, helping them understand is so important because, you know, as I've already mentioned, Google can do updates and sometimes it doesn't make sense, because Google doesn't really tell you what it's up to. But I think if the education is there behind the scenes with the client of like, this is what we're doing, this is the action we're taking, I think it just helps. It's all about communication. And I think that is probably the key thing for me across everything in terms of success. It's how we communicate internally with clients, with everybody else, just like this. It's all about communication. And I think that's so important.
Now, onto that then, one of the things which I think is massive for you is, and would be important for you, is building lasting long-term relationships with your clients, your customers and, you know, users. And that means you've got to build something that they want, build it with them as well as for them maybe, and also builds trust. So I always think that trust is such an important aspect of anything that people build or deliver as businesses and organizations. How do you do that?
Well, there's so many different touch points to this that were just springing up in my mind. And I think now we're on, you know, everyone's online. It's how do you be authentic if you are reaching out to somebody, or, you know, how do you show that you really care? And, you know, I think there's different aspects of that. For example, we offer completely free audits for both SEO and Google Ads. And yes, they're completely no obligation. We give you tips from the get-go of how you can help. And I think that starts to build that relationship of trust then. Like we've identified companies that we'd really love to work with. And like we've sent them videos where we've looked into their like SEO and gone, oh, you know, this, you could be doing this or you could be doing that. And I hope through that, you know, that they see that, oh, these people have really gone out their way because actually they do really care. Sometimes I look at them and, oh gosh, there's so much we could do here. I'd really love to help them. So I guess it starts there. And then I think it continues from there. So, you know, when you go to a networking event, it's keeping in touch with people, you know, caring about what they're up to. How can you connect other people? How can you help them? And I think it goes a really long way. And because you remember those people then. And then similarly with clients, it's building that trust. Like things change in businesses, strategies change. And again, it boils back to that communication. Like, are we keeping in touch regularly? We really push for meetings monthly as a minimum to know what's happening and to make sure that our strategy is still lined up with the bigger business goals. And yeah, I mean, I've said lots of different things there, but it's all, again, down to communication and how you communicate with people. And I think it's not just about that one time. Like, it's keeping up with people month on month, year on year, and just keeping those relationships going, because we live in a very busy world. But it doesn't go amiss to pop people a message and go, how was that? And how's things going? And actually, I thought of you here. I saw something and I thought of you. And that's something that I really like to do.
Everything you've said, you didn't use the word sell once. You didn't say buying or anything like that. You just talked about people, help and keeping in touch. And that speaks of businesses or companies who are actually about serving before they get anything in return. And that's probably a difficult way to think of a business, because we all want to land something and get the money ASAP. I don't know what you think about that. And also what's your thought about how businesses are done these days in terms of being able to monetize, so to speak? Do you think that's around about the way to do it, or in terms of building that relationship first, build trust before you can actually demonstrate that you're worthy of them taking a chance on you?
That's such a good question. So I think there's different points that I've got about that. So I think the first thing is, especially when you're outreaching to people and they're maybe not necessarily looking for what you do, we're sort of talking about different parts of the funnel. So, when we do those like videos or helpful tips, and we keep in touch, and hopefully not in an annoying way, it might be 6 months later, or, did you get the video? Was anything useful? I think it's just about the time and like the commitment to doing something. And you see this all the time where like people are trying to stand out and do something different and keep that communication going with someone. This might be a bit of a left field example here, but there was a company that wanted to get into Tesco with their products. So this guy, and unfortunately I don't know his name, maybe we'll have to edit that in, but he basically created this massive letter that he went and stood outside Tesco, and there was a photo of him and he was getting 50,000 signatures to get this massive letter delivered to Tesco to make them stand out. And I just thought, yeah, it's that commitment. And, it's not just a one cold email and done. It's, I'm going to stand out here because I think my product's worth this and I'm going to do something different. So yeah, that was a bit of a left field example there, but it just made me think about how do you build those relationships, stand out and make that connection? And I think from that already he had a connection from somebody that was like, oh yeah, actually I can help. So I think there's a long-term strategy for some certain things. I think it's a little bit different in terms of, yes, with all businesses, we all need to make money. We need to get money. We need to secure clients so that we can continue to run successfully as a business. And I think it comes back down to the funnel again, like what stage of the funnel are they at? So naturally we run Google Ads. We run Google Ads for ourselves. We run Google Ads for our clients. Actually, the people that are at that part of the funnel are searching on Google because they want somebody and they want somebody now. So like the strategy's a little bit different there. Like we'll still always do a free audit, but actually we come to the call prepared. So we've already looked at the data. We've looked at the trends for that business. We get a really good feel about them on the call. We can align the strategy to them and we do it almost straight away because they've booked the call in with us. We know their website. We can take a look, get a bit of info and straight away we can then go, actually, this is how we can help you. You've said this, that and the other. Okay, those are the problems and things that you're facing at the moment and here are the solutions that we can put in place. It's almost like I don't know, somebody used this phrase which was like, you've spoken, we heard. And I thought it was really interesting because I think that's a key part of showing your value as a company. Like you said that actually this was your specific problem. We've listened to that and this is the specific solution that we can help you put in place. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. It's a bit two different examples there, but I think knowing where people are at in the journey is really important and that works for SEO as well. There's different keywords that people might be putting in, for example, in Google, and they'll be at a different part of the funnel. Maybe they're just researching about what you do and then looking for comparisons. They're not quite looking for somebody yet. And there's different groups of keywords that you can find in terms of where somebody's at. And it's making sure that your company hits every part of that funnel. Obviously, when people are at the bottom of the funnel and they're ready to buy, brilliant, but they're the most competitive keywords. How can you as a business start off and build up your SEO on Google? You can look at keywords that are less competitive and then you can sort of build your way up. If you've got like a good domain authority and a keyword's not that competitive and it is a keyword at the bottom of the funnel, then even better. You go after those as well. But yeah, there's different strategies across the board.
Would you say that how hard is it and how beneficial is it if you think ahead of the client? Because sometimes you mentioned that you're trying to understand what their needs are, what they actually want. But I would probably suspect that some clients or customers don't even know what they want really. They know what they should want, but that might not necessarily be right for them. And how do you navigate those conversations to actually point them to what will be actually better for their business, even if they don't know it yet? They may be quite tricky conversations to have if you have them.
we do have those conversations. And again, I think it's back to education. Like people will come to us for SEO sometimes. Maybe they've just launched a website, and actually, if it's a brand new website, you've really got to be committed to see results. And actually the conversation is, do you need leads right now from your website? Because if so, perhaps the strategy is actually Google Ads, because with an ad, you can be at the top because you're paying to be there. But then if you've got the budget to do both, the goal is that you have an ad that's sitting up here and it's making you money straight away. And then you can build up your SEO so that you're at a point then where you're not reliant on having to pay for the ads anymore. You have a ranking website. If you do the both, you just dominate the whole space for certain topics, which is amazing. But SEOs are like a long-term strategy. And I think it's understanding what people need. So like if a business has just had a new website, but they've already got a really great network, they get a lot of referrals from word of mouth, for example, and they want to commit then to SEO because actually they get leads from different sources, then SEO could be the right strategy. But then if they don't have that and actually they've launched this website and they need to just make money in the business, then we go, okay, I think potentially looking at Google Ads is going to be the best first step for you. Perhaps when we've raised you some money, you can then invest in the SEO and you can build that up. But it's all about that understanding of what it is that they want. It might be that they need leads, they've got a product that they need to sell, or it might be brand awareness. It really does depend on the business. They just need more eyes looking at what it is they're doing. Because they've got, a really great product, it's sustainable, they believe it's going to make a real big difference. And once people know about it, that will help. So there's different campaigns and strategies depending on what people are trying to achieve. And let's get to the bottom of that and understanding what is the best route. And to be fair, generally people agree and they're like, that makes complete sense. So we don't have too many difficult conversations.
Do you know what? We talked about SEO, but I know that you've got some expertise in other slightly similar areas. And most people just think about the domain authority on a website and how do I get myself ranked and all that comes with it, which of course it's a very complex science, right? What else would you say people might not think is SEO, but actually is? Because I think about video, for example, right? If I were to go into YouTube platform, for example, there is some elements of SEO involved in that to a degree, and keywords and all that sort of stuff. All things that I'm terrible at, by the way. But there are things that people don't necessarily know, which perhaps they should think about, which is very much related. What would you say those are?
Video is massive, as we know, a video can have a massive impact on SEO, even optimizing on YouTube. Like SEO for YouTube is a thing. There's so many different types of SEO for Google Business Profile, SEO for YouTube. There's just so many different examples of it. I think another one as well is user experience, which does sort of fall into SEO because if you're driving a lot of people to your website and the SEO is working, but then at the end of the day, you're not getting leads or people aren't getting in touch with you or they're not buying your products, it's then what is the cause of that? Is your website? Is there an issue with the website? Is it not clear? And I think within that, there's opportunities where people can build sort of what we call lead magnets. So like if you're driving a lot of traffic to your website on a certain topic, you can look down the route of why don't you create an e-guide, which is gated, which means that, you'll be able to collect their email addresses because it's a topic that they're interested in. And then you can keep in touch with them and you can build that trust and authority and educate them. And then you're building that relationship from people that if you hadn't got that content on there, so that downloadable, really useful guide for them that's completely free, aside from paying, like in the sense of giving an email address, there's those sorts of things as well. So it's not just about, we can sit and go, the SEO organic traffic's going up, brilliant. But actually, are you making more money? Is the traffic we're driving traffic that is making a difference to you? Is it that they're not actually getting in touch, and what's the issue there? So it's data, and actually it's data all round. It's following the track of data. What is the data telling you? And then, this is ultimately the meaning of data-driven decisions. Like, yes, the SEO is working, but actually once that's on the website, something's not happening and it should be. So I think the data actually tells you all the different verticals of what you need to be looking at and addressing.
No, that's really very helpful. I'm just taking some notes there to help me, hopefully getting some free advice from you while we're here. Why not, eh?
Why not? Why not?
So, now I'm going to just talk about something which I know you're it's probably maybe not front of mind, but something that's maybe you've been thinking about, which is about what does the future look like? And what could the future look like? Because we have new technology coming in. Obviously the dreaded AI question, which is always on everyone's lips. What might it look like in the future in terms of your type of industry, and how AI either may be a threat or something that can really help in future?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, the AI is really big one. So yeah, I think AI brings lots of benefits to SEO. It can speed up processes in terms of like keyword research, and it can help you to create like a skeleton of content, I would say. I think the AI models now, you can teach them, and you can actually teach them what's in your brain. And I think that's the key. And that's the experimenting that everybody's going through at this moment. Like, how do you teach it to know what you know? So there's like a big thing in SEO, which is called EEAT, which stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, can always struggle with that word, and trustworthiness. How do you put your experience and authoritativeness in a piece of content that you've generated with AI? And it's ultimately what you're then feeding it. And I think this is where it comes to like developing prompts and, you know, how do you speak? What language do you use? What knowledge do you have that this AI at this point would never, ever know? So I think when we're at that point where you've been able to train models, and there's people out there that are doing this for people where they've got like AI bots that actually answer with the things that you've told them out of your head, which is mind blowing. You know, I think it's going to be a different world, but I think it all boils back down to knowing the strategy for SEO. You know, if you create all of this content, but you don't have a clear strategy, you don't really know the key pillar pages that you need to create. You know, you've got to understand like why you're doing that and then why you're putting that in place. It's not a case that you can just go onto AI and go, well, write me a piece of content about this. Like, it's not at that level where it would know all the things that actually make a difference from an SEO point of view. So yeah, I think AI is massively going to change how we work. It'll streamline processes and make things a little bit quicker, but I still think there's that human touch of ensuring that you can portray your authentic self and what you stand for as a business. And yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's, you know, it's really crazy, really, the things that you can create with it. It's amazing.
I always think as well that AI speeds up processes and will probably increasingly do so to the point where there's potentially more data available, more content available, leading to potentially more noise and maybe more need for experts to support, guide, educate in a different way. Probably less doing and more guiding based on experience, experts like yourself, for example. So I'm just speculating here. I think that perhaps your role and your may evolve to being that expert in the room that helps people to sort of help themselves, so to speak, and then let the AI do the grunt work, because there'll be probably more demand for more consumption because there's just more information and more data out there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the big thing with AI at the moment is the accuracy of it. And I think it's knowing that, so as much as there's so much data going out there into the world, how do you make sure that it is actually accurate and, you know, what your business does or stands for or means? And I think it's having that human touch actually, which sort of makes it personal and authentic. So yeah, it's like a consultant essentially to then guide through. And I think with Google Ads, like Google Ads, you know, we work with AI in Google Ads because of the different campaigns that are within it. So, you know, it's combining those two tools. And, I almost see, and I've tried to think of a better example, but this is always the one that seems to come out in my head. But AI is a tool, a bit like a power drill. Do you know how to use it or not? Anyone can go and buy it. Anyone can go and get one. Do you know what you're doing once you've bought it? And, you know, some people do amazing things with power drills, you know, and other people don't do anything at all. And it's how do you refine your use of a tool to really make you the best at what you do? And it's understanding, well, what do you want out of it? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And that sort of lines up with what you were just saying, really. Like, how do you get this tool to then support you to achieve this goal? And yeah, so I love my tool analogy, but we'll leave it there.
No, it's a good one, definitely. And I'm terrible with power tools, by the way. So screwdrivers, I'm fine. Anything beyond that, it's way beyond me.
Yeah.
So right, in that case, then, I am very, very intrigued to understand a bit more about how you work with your people in your team. So I think you've said before you've got a growing team, and there's some diverse skill sets in there. What are your top tips to get the best out of your team so that they can be the best that they can?
So there's different elements of what we do. So regular one-to-one, so a weekly one-to-one of like, how are you? How are things going? What are the positive wins from the week? What have been the challenges of the week? How can we help you with the goals that we've set is definitely one of those things. Something else we try to do is like, we put lots of systems and processes in so that it's like they can help themselves if they're stuck with something. But I think something else that's really important is making sure that we're available to support. So we have a thing called an ideal week where we'll all build the blocks of what we should be working on within a week. That includes training time. It includes like client time. It includes meetings, and there's like set times where actually all the important things that need to happen in a week do happen. Like, work can be crazy, as I'm sure we can all appreciate, but how do you then protect time for 2 hours of training a week? Because that's what's really going to move the needle on how we all improve both as people and, in terms of what we do as well. And that training as well, we do encourage like transferable skills. So if they want to look at the psychology of marketing, for example, they have the space and freedom to do that. So that they can grow within their role. So yeah, I think it's again down to communication and making sure that we create an environment that's supportive and we're all in it together. Ultimately, it's, we're all on the same journey here, and the business that we're in it changes all of the time. And, we all have to keep up to date with what's going on with Google. And yeah, down to communication, I'd say, is ultimately what helps us to lead.
I noticed you mentioned about you have to always keep learning, and I guess in the industry that you're in, that's a given, clearly, because it moves so fast. But I also suspect that's the same for most of us. What I found is potentially many colleagues or even people such as myself that have not achieved the very best that they can. Most of the time it's because they've probably felt that there's not much more to learn, or that they don't need to, or they've just lost the love for it. But what's clear definitely is that staying ahead of the game there's no substitute for that. And building the time to do that is important, but also it happens to be, certainly from my experience, something that gets put to the bottom of the pile in terms of prioritization, because by the time you've got to Friday, and you've not done that bit of learning or reading you wanted to do, or all that sort of stuff, something else comes along and then you start again. So it's really encouraging to see that you actually take it seriously in terms of investing time in learning new skills. So yeah, really, really good tip. Thank you. I'll give you a chance for one more top tip about anything to do with your industry that you want to share, that you just want to leave us with.
I guess it would be to really sit down and know your numbers. Know how much you can put into winning a client for you still to be profitable at the end of it. And I think this speaks largely to Google Ads. So like, what is the cost of that product to you, and how much can you afford to pay on a Google Ads to win them? So knowing your metrics, like if you're a B2B and you get 10 leads and your conversion rate's 50%, for example, it's understanding, well, what's the bulk? How does that look then on ads? If it's going to cost you X amount to get those 10 leads, what's the value of them? That's the customer lifetime value of them when they're done. So I think understanding your numbers is really key with any sort of marketing. And yeah, I think that's what I would leave it on, really. We have like a free calculator for people that are sort of looking at Google Ads audits and seeing if Google Ads is going to be a good option for them. And we do these audits to help people, because I think sometimes like people can put money on Google Ads and it doesn't work. And I think there's a lot of work that can go ahead of that can help people to not spend money unnecessarily and to get the most if they're going to get started with ads. So that'll be my little tip, know your numbers, which I'm sure all the accountants say.
That's great. It's a great way to end. Yeah, all I can say is it's been a real pleasure. And Kelly, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll catch up again another time.